quote from her that I want to go ahead and share with you, and maybe you all can pause the video and talk about the quote. One of her quotes that you'll hear today is, "You gain strength, courage," which we know what that is now, "and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." I love that quote. So today you're going to learn that she is a voice for human rights, and you also want me to focus on all the causes that she fought for. That's what you're going to be writing about tomorrow. But at the end of the lesson today, I would love for you to have a conversation about what if you could meet her? What would be some questions you would ask her, or what would you even say to her? So the more you learn about her today, about the causes that she fights for, that would better your conversation. So let's skip on to our vocabulary today and the words that I want you to listen for. The first word is your word of the day, so listen carefully for that. That is my turn, admirable, your turn. The quality of deserving respect or admiration. So notice the illustration. This little lady is admiring or respecting this fellow's arm muscles or bicep muscles. Your sentence is, George Washington had many admirable qualities. That means he was highly respected. The next word to listen for is my turn, devotion, your turn. Good job. Extreme dedication or attachment to a cause or a person. So right now, your family members are probably showing you great devotion to helping you with online learning. I'm sure you see some familiar faces here. This word to listen for, or term, my turn. First lady, your turn. The wife of the President of the United States, or even the wife of the governor of a state. Mary Todd Lincoln became the first lady of the United States in 1861 when her husband, Abraham Lincoln, became president. Another term to listen for, my turn, human rights, your turn. Rights that are believed to belong to everyone, such as food, a place to live, and the right to an education and a job. Your sentence. Eleanor Roosevelt devoted the last part of her life to improving human rights for everyone. The next term, my turn, politics, your turn. You probably see some more familiar faces here. The process of or participation in government and governing. Several former presidents continue to be involved in American politics. So again, your goal today is to listen for what she fought for, the causes that she fought for. At the end of today's text, hopefully you can have a conversation about what if you met her, what would you say to her, what questions would you have for her. Again, your word of the day is admirable, and tomorrow you're going to be writing about her causes that she fought for. So those are all the things I want you to listen for today. Let's get started with Eleanor Roosevelt, a voice for human rights. One of the, my turn, most admirable, your turn, good, women in American history was named Eleanor Roosevelt. She is more commonly known as Eleanor Roosevelt. She was born a long time ago in 1884, but just like Susan B. Anthony, her achievements made our world a much better place. Although Eleanor's family was very wealthy, they believed in helping those less fortunate. And so from an early age, Eleanor learned to care about people who struggle to survive. Eleanor did not have a happy childhood. For part of it, Eleanor and her brother were raised by her grandmother. Although Eleanor loved her grandmother, she thought her grandmother was very strict, because she would not let Eleanor read books in bed. And she made Eleanor wear these long black stockings or socks, even in the middle of summer. Now, when Eleanor was 15, she was sent to an English boarding school for girls. So think back to Susan B. Anthony, and you could probably make a text-to-text connection here. Susan B. Anthony also attended a boarding school, which is the school where you would go and actually live. Eleanor was very happy at this boarding school. She made lots of friends, She loved her French teacher, Marie Soubise. Marie thought that Eleanor was a wonderful student. It was from Marie that Eleanor developed a love of learning and an interest in travel. Eleanor said that her 3 years there was the happiest time of her life, or one of the happiest times. And this is an actual photograph from that time frame. So she was about 15 years old here in her photograph. Eleanor did actually, when she was 18, return to New York here in the States. It was an exciting time for Eleanor. Her uncle, Theodore Roosevelt, had just become the President of the United States. In those days, wealthy young girls like Eleanor went to parties to meet wealthy young boys. Eleanor's grandmother hoped that Eleanor would meet a young man whom she could marry. And Eleanor did meet someone. She met Franklin D Roosevelt, her very distant cousin. They liked each other and they began to date. Franklin thought that Eleanor was a very smart and kind. They were both very eager to work for their country. Franklin and Eleanor decided to get married. They were married in New York City, and President Theodore Roosevelt walked the bride down the aisle. Eleanor was 21 years of age. During the next 10 years, Eleanor gave birth to 6 children: Anna, James, Elliot, Franklin Jr., John, and another son who died when he was a baby. And this is a family photograph right here. Eleanor's husband, Franklin, was very interested in, my turn, politics, your turn. Good. In 1911, he won a political position in the New York Senate. The family moved to Albany, the New York State capital. 2 years later, Franklin was appointed the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. This time, the family moved to Washington, D.C. Eleanor spent a great deal of time with her family, but she also worked on many projects that reached out to people who needed help. In 1921, Franklin was stricken with polio. Now, polio is a virus or a disease that can cause paralysis or make it impossible to move a part of the body, such as the legs. Fortunately, today, there's a vaccine against polio to protect people from getting this disease. Because of polio, Franklin could not get around very easily. He spent many hours in his wheelchair, as you can see here in this illustration. Franklin had hoped to become president one day. He was afraid that he would no longer achieve his dream, though. Eleanor demonstrated great devotion to her husband during this time. She was determined to do everything she could to help her husband fulfill his ambition to be a president. And so, 9 years later, after he was stricken with polio, with Eleanor's help, Franklin became the governor of New York. But then on March 4th, 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt became the 32nd president of the United States. Eleanor was by his side as the First Lady. So here he is being sworn into office as the 32nd president of the United States. Franklin D. Roosevelt had become president during one of the most difficult times in American history. This period was known as the Great Depression, and this is something you'll learn more about in 4th and 5th grade. Millions of people were unemployed or even without a job. Many were hungry and desperate. Hundreds and thousands of men, women, and children stood in line at soup kitchens. Soup kitchens are places where food is provided for free to those in need. Franklin and Eleanor were very saddened by what was happening to so many Americans. They promised to help them. Eleanor traveled all over the United States, and she acted as her husband's eyes and ears. That's another quote that I really like to hear. She acted as his eyes and ears. What does that mean? You can pause the video here and talk about that with your family member. What does it mean that Eleanor acted as her husband's eyes and ears? So she met with groups of people and asked them how her husband could help them. Eleanor told Franklin all about the things she saw. She told him about the difficulties that so many people faced. She told him about the good things that were happening too. Eleanor's reports to her husband really helped Franklin to to set up an advisory group called the Black Cabinet. So that's an example right here of the Black Cabinet. The members of this group were talented, successful African Americans who were specifically chosen for their skills. Their job was to find ways to improve the lives of African Americans living in poverty. And one of these ladies that helped is Mary McCoy Bethune. You will meet her on Wednesday, but I just want to give you a little bit of information about her. So she was actually on the Black Cabinet, and Eleanor believed that two heads are better than one. So she really enjoyed working with Mary. And so together they set up something called the National Youth Administration and the Division of Negro Affairs. These programs help many young African Americans pay for their education. Just like today, a better education provides better employment opportunities or a chance to get a better job. Eleanor dedicated much of her life to working for civil rights and for human rights. Now remember, those human rights are what everybody deserves and needs. That would be food, shelter, an education, and a job. But you'll meet more and learn more about Mary on Wednesday. Now during this slide, I'm going to share with you most of the causes she fought for. So I want you to really listen in so that you can talk about this at the end of the lesson and you can write about it tomorrow. As the First Lady, Eleanor had many chances to speak about the problems facing America. During the Great Depression, Eleanor had a radio show and she wrote a newspaper column. In addition to campaigning for equality for African Americans, children, women, and the poor, Eleanor also campaigned for the rights of Native Americans. Eleanor highlighted the fact that Native Americans were being pushed off their land and that their way of life was continually threatened. In the year 1939, Eleanor took a stand against discrimination. Eleanor belonged to an organization called the Daughters of the American Revolution. When the Daughters of the American Revolution would not allow a very talented African-American singer named Marian Anderson to sing at a hall that they owned in Washington, D.C., Eleanor just left the organization. Eleanor later got permission for Marian to sing at the Lincoln Memorial, which is where this illustration is from. More than 75,000 people came to support her and hear her wonderful voice. Even after the death of her husband, Franklin, Eleanor continued to work for human rights. In 1946, President Harry S. Truman asked Eleanor to work at the United Nations, an organization that includes many of the countries in the world. The main goal of the United Nations, even today, is world peace. But it also works to reduce poverty and help all people in need. And this is Eleanor working for the Human Nations, or United Nations. The following year, Eleanor became the leader of the United Nations Commissions on Human Rights. She helped write an important document called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document states that all people should have the right to work, the right to rest, the right to an education, and the right to share in the life of their own community. Eleanor discovered that most people in the world want the same basic rights. Eleanor considered this to be her greatest achievement. So for many years, Eleanor traveled to Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. She often spoke about the importance of peace in our world. This is another quote. It isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. One must work at it. Eleanor actually is on a stamp. And another quote from her, I told you I'd be sharing a few. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Let me repeat that one more time. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. This is another time you could stop and talk about what that quote means. Eleanor was the First Lady from 1933 to 1945. She was First Lady longer than anyone else, and she was an excellent role model for other First Ladies. She once said, as I just read to you, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." Eleanor tried to live by those words and continued to work for world peace and an end to poverty up until her death, November 7th, 1962. She died in New York City and was buried at Hyde Park, New York, her husband's family home. Eleanor Roosevelt was truly a remarkable lady. And so this is the time to stop the video if you like and go ahead and have a conversation about what you might ask her if you were to see her, or what you would say to her. This is actually a video clip which I will share also for you all to watch if you have time. But let's go ahead and take a quick peek at your word of the day so that you could also have a conversation about that. Okay, so once again, your word is, my turn, admirable, your turn, good. And a quote from our text, lots of quotes. One of the most admirable women in American history was one named Eleanor Roosevelt. The word admirable refers to someone or something that deserves respect. Another sentence, President Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War was admirable. So at this time, this is a great time to tell about something or someone you believe is admirable. You can try to use this word when you tell about it. A sentence starter for you would be, blank is admirable because. So that's the end of lesson 3. Stay tuned on Wednesday for lesson 4 with Mary McCoy Bethune. And again, I love you, I miss you. Dojo me with anything that you're learning or any questions you may have. I would love to hear your sentences also. Send us a picture so we can see what your online learning looks like. And I will see you on Wednesday at our Google Hangout at 1